We want to let you know that the meeting today is being recorded, and we'll be muting everyone to prevent background noise during the presentation portion of the meeting. Also, if you all wouldn't mind, if you're able to, in the chat field below, if you could type in your name and the organization, if you represent an organization today, that could help us, track which folks are on the call today. And also it might help you all be introduced to one another and, potentially connect after today's meeting. Normally we would have this meeting in person. And we've been doing these grant information sessions for almost a decade now. And what has always been beneficial about them, one of the reasons they're beneficial, is to allow that networking opportunity among local organizations that might not always be able to spend a lot of time together learning from one another and sharing ideas. So at least this way, if you could enter your name and organization in the chat function, we'll try to connect that way. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now and get started on the formal part of the presentation. Okay, I hope everyone can see that. Okay. So welcome again, everyone. My name is Stacy Reed, and I serve as the Vice President of Programs and Marketing at the Community Foundation for the Land of Lincoln. If you aren't already familiar with the Community Foundation, I hope you'll get to know us. Our mission is to connect people who care with causes that matter, and we accomplish that mission in a number of ways, primarily through the administration of over 260 charitable funds that individuals, families, and organizations have established at the foundation to help fulfill their philanthropic goals. The Women's Fund is one of those 260 funds, and it was started as a permanent endowment 15 years ago by a small group of local women who wanted to pool their resources together to create greater community impact forever. They launched a giving circle called Women for Women to help grow the endowment by recruiting like-minded women who enjoy the idea of collective giving. Each year, Women for Women members contribute $1,000 to the Women's Fund, and a small group of them volunteer to serve on the annual grant committee to review proposals and recommend grant awards. Community Foundation staff supports those meetings. Over the years, more and more women have joined the Giving Circle and contributed to the Women's Fund. And through their support, more than $430,000 has been awarded through annual grants to local organizations that are making a big difference in the lives of local women and children. All right, we're going to skip ahead here. All right, so we'll jump right into why we're here today. The Women's Fund. Over the years, the Women's Fund has maintained a focus on several key priorities through its grant making, which you'll see listed here on the slide. Women for Women members really prefer to make large, impactful grants. So as we'll get to later in today's discussion, you'll see that as their endowment has grown, as their membership has grown, oftentimes so have their grants. So they really, really want to pool their resources to make large-sized grants in the community. They prefer to make programs that address really pressing issues that face local women and children. Sometimes that means supporting programs that need to be enhanced in some ways. Other times that means launching a new program that has never existed before, but really needs local support to make it happen. Historically, they've given special consideration to programs that are really collaborative with other organizations, that don't duplicate the work of similar organizations, or if there is some kind of similarity with another organization, There's collaboration among those organizations and how they're serving similar populations. And they really appreciate in proposals and in practice programs that have measurable results that are tracked through rigorous data. Special consideration sometimes is also given to programs that address behavioral health and well-being of women and children, although that's not a requirement. In order to be eligible for a grant from the Community Foundation, you need to be a 501c3 organization, or you can be a faith-based organization or public or private school. And sometimes units of government can be eligible to apply. The geographic scope for grants from the Women's Fund is Sangamon and its surrounding counties, except for Macon County, because they're served by another really good community foundation. Okay, the timeline. So Women for Women, the Women's Fund, has a two-step process for its grant program. Right now, we're in the letter of inquiry phase. Yesterday, the letter of inquiry was launched and can be accessed on the Community Foundation's website at cfll.org. And we'll be accepting letters of inquiry through February 4th. So the letter of inquiry isn't as involved as the full proposal. It's relatively short, but it should do a good job really crystallizing the core components of your idea of what you're proposing for your program. By March 1st, the Community Foundation will notify all applicants of whether they're being invited to submit a full proposal. And then in early May, we'll be awarding grants at what we hope will be an in-person grant reception. All right, now the really good stuff. Up to $38,000 is available for grants this year. It'll be a one-year grant, and the Community Foundation and the Women's Fund do ask for a mid-year written progress report, as well as an end-of-year written final report that includes a report of financial expenditures. Women for Women also likes to invite grant recipients to attend its fall luncheon to give brief presentations about the grant-funded programs, but also just to talk informally with members so that Women for Women members can gain a deeper understanding of your organizations and your perspectives on community needs and issues. So to be a grant recipient of the Women's Fund is a wonderful thing because you're getting funding from a great group, but it's also a tremendous opportunity to really talk with a committed, passionate group of people in the community that really want to learn about local needs and oftentimes carry on their support either through volunteerism or financial support long after the grant partnership has ended. So it's just a really good relationship to build with local philanthropists in the community. All right, so it's often helpful at these grant information sessions to reflect back on grants that have been awarded through the Women's Fund and what types of programs have really resonated with Women for Women members. And I was looking back over them this week and reflecting on all of the great projects that have been funded, and I'd love to discuss all of them with you. But for the sake of time today, we thought we would highlight just a few of them to give you a sense of what's really resonated with Women for Women members. But I do encourage you to go to this website. It's on the Community Foundation's website, cfll.org. You can click through to Women for Women and view a comprehensive list and short descriptions of past projects that have been funded. But as I was looking at them, I went back to 2008. It was the very first award given by Women for Women, and some of the founders of Women for Women, I think, will remember it well. but it was a grant to support a mentoring program called the Girl to Girl Dream Speakers Program between female athletes at UIS and 8th, 9th, and 10th grade girls from Springfield Public Schools. And this program hit on a lot of important deliverables that pleased Women for Women. And I'm just going to mention a few that I observed as kind of staff for the Giving Circle. There was a really strong ongoing partnership between UIS and Springfield Public Schools throughout the duration of the grant-funded program. Over that year, the two organizations were in constant communication, strategizing about recruitment efforts of District 186 students and how to make the programming more effective. They tracked data constantly. They held recreational activities and trainings and small group discussions over that year. And the program delivered an attendance rate of over 90% from the District 186 students that have been recruited. And participants were surveyed to help assess what was working best within the program and what improvements needed to be made. And then they used that feedback to help improve the program. Also, there was just ongoing communication with the Community Foundation and therefore Women for Women. As all of these events were occurring, we were just copied on notices about the activities, and whether or not Women for Women members or Community Foundation staff attended those or, were formally invited to attend all of those events. It was so helpful to see all of the activity that was going on over the course of that year. It was really exciting and it helped bring the grant to life for the donors that helped contribute to it. Also, I think I'm going to jump to one other program if we have time here. I'm going to go back to the slide here. More recently, there was a program that was started from scratch that would have had trouble launching without funding support from the Women's Fund. It was to the Jacksonville Area Center for Independent Living, and they actually received a couple grants in 2018 and subsequently in 2019 because it was so well received by Women for Women. Through our grant funding, the Center for Independent Living was able to launch Deaf Wings, and that's a new program that provides services to benefit deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind individuals who are experiencing domestic violence, abuse, sexual assault, or exploitation, as well as their children. And like I mentioned, this was a program that had no track record. It just had a really, really passionate group of staff and volunteers that had done a lot of legwork leading up to applying and had details in place, sustainability plans tentatively in mind, and just a lot of ambition to make it happen. It met a critical unfilled need in the community. Nothing like this existed before. And in terms of its deliverables, it trained local law enforcement on how to better serve this population. Volunteers were recruited who became certified deaf domestic violence advocates who work directly with those who have been victimized. And it trained trauma-informed interpreting for ASL interpreters. It also established a confidential hotline specifically for the deaf or hard of hearing. So there were a lot of hard deliverables on it, but there were also a lot of hurdles along the way. And I think another reason this program was so well received was because as this group faced those hurdles or complications as they were building the program, they had the diligence to figure it out and overcome it. And they were also really transparent about what they were up against and their strategies for working through it or working around it. So that kind of ongoing communication was really appreciated. All right, so that's about all the talking that I wanted to do on behalf of the staff of the Community Foundation. I think what we're going to do now is move into kind of a more informal Q&A session with folks on today's call. I'd like to introduce Sammy Mandir. She is on the call today, and I'm going to ask her to unmute. But Sammy is the grant committee chair for Women this year. So I wanted to thank her for serving and let her maybe speak to anything she wants to elaborate on from the presentation. And from there, maybe we can, okay, I quit sharing my screen, right? Okay. I'd like to solicit questions from everyone else, either through the chat function at the bottom of your screen, or you can raise your hand and we can call on you that way. But yeah, Sammy, if you wanted to jump in and kind of give your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks so much, Stacy, and thank you everyone for joining today's session. I think we're really looking forward to understanding through you and through your eyes the existing need areas in the community that continue to exist, as well as how your own efforts and organizations are going to help fill some of those gaps. These times have been hard, I think, on everybody, but especially those who are helping meet the needs of the underserved. So we applaud all of you for continuing those efforts. You find yourself underfunded and I think many times overtaxed. Well, not so much by the government, but by the need for your support services. So we look forward to being part of your journey in whichever way we can and learning more about the community and the need areas. As Stacy mentioned, the Women for Women Giving Circle really strives to empower and support programs that assist the vulnerable and the at-risk amongst us, specifically the programs that address issues faced by women and kids. And I think in all of this time, we have found that programs that aim to collaborate with other organizations in their communities by pooling their resources, by joining hands, by getting more stakeholders involved are the ones that do not see an improved impact of their programs, but also are able to sustain the initiatives over a long period of time. I think one has been impressed by many such programs and initiatives that have been brought to us. And one that really did stand out in my own mind was the Creative Reuse Marketplace. They address such a pressing issue of environmental stewardship, but at the same time, they serve the very, very important purpose of providing job training and workforce development for women who are at risk, who are homeless, who find themselves without a means of self-sustenance. So I think that purpose is dual and it involves a bigger investment, given the fact that they join hands with various organizations, whether it be the Art Association, the Springfield City, enjoying their own resources, as well as a pipeline of women who might be seeking that help through Wouldn't It Be Lovely, the Inner City Mission, and so on. So I think what one has found is that programs that come together, they might not be, as Stacy mentioned, duplicative, but at the same time, they find synergies in their missions and join hands to consolidate resources, have a really good chance of making it through the years and in ways bigger than one would have thought. The other thing that I think we have as grant committee members seen that proposals that are brought, not just a clear definition of what their mission is, the target group that they hope to empower and support, but also how the funds received from the foundation would help impact their programs in more specific ways. So the total outlay is wonderful, but at the same time as to what that money would help serve the purpose of, whether it's by way of an investment in technology, staffing, infrastructure, and just how that money would then impact the population served by the program is of tremendous help in really understanding the scope of the project as well as the people who would be served by it. But this is going to be an exciting year. I'm just absolutely enthused to see that figure of 38,000 there. And we hope to be able to make as big a difference as we possibly can through your own involvement. And wish you all great success and good luck in submitting the applications.
That's wonderful. Sammy, thank you. I know we have a number of other Women for Women members on the call today. I didn't want to put anyone on the spot, but if there's anything any of you would like to add about what has really struck you as a Women for Women member about grants that have been funded in the past or proposals that you have read and what worked and what didn't work, would you kind of like to share any of your thoughts? Diane, I love your dog.
I know he always, excuse me, he has to be part of these calls. My apologies. But Stacy, I would just add to your comments and add to Sammy's. I think it's the power of the collaboration that makes the difference on these. I think lots of people in our community over the years, and myself included, have have favorite charities or purposes, passions that they have, and they donate directly to those, and that's great. But what happens with this is the combined effort has so much more impact. And so I think that's one of the things that stands out to me about why these efforts that we all are going towards and these organizations that are going to be applying for these, I think that's what makes a difference in our community. So I think the more we can get the collaboration, the more power that we have with all of these.
Thank you. All right, well, now I just would like to open it up to anyone on the call that, maybe has thought about applying or, may or may not have already looked at the letter of inquiry application that's up on the website. But now's the time if you have, any questions you'd like to discuss with Women for Women members themselves. You can share your thoughts now, either in the chat field below or by raising that hand icon. Let's see here. If we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again because I wanted to make sure that all of you have my contact information as we get closer to the February 4th deadline for letters of inquiry. All right, here. Let's see here.
Stacy, this is Karen Reinke.
Karen.
Hi, Stacy and everyone. I was just going to mention a little thing. Well, go ahead and share your screen, but I was going to mention that as a grant committee member and a researcher, I wanted to touch on the measurable outcomes, as I know that can be very tricky for many people who don't have a research background. So, the measurable outcomes, the more specific you can be, the better. I, as a researcher, like to see. But I also understand that that varies quite a bit based on what it is you're proposing. How you measure can be a tricky thing to do. So make sure at least something is included about measurable outcomes. So we have something to go on. Sometimes people are so lost, they'll just not mention measurable outcomes, but we really do like to see those, or at least I do.
Excellent point, Karen. Thank you. And Dr. Singley, I think,
Yes.
Did we see your hand raised?
Yes, I'd like to follow up on the information. I think it was Karen that just mentioned measurable outcomes, and you talked a little bit about how the first project tracked young girls, and I'd like to get some more information about how the process worked during that for that program.
Yeah, so with each recipient, we're here to kind of work with you to create a structure that makes sense for the program that's being funded. So, in terms of tracking data, there's not kind of a kind of cookie cutter approach to it. We really individualize each grant partnership based on what program is being funded. That said, for the Girl to Girl Dream Speakers program, they worked with Springfield Public Schools, and they actually really focused on students that were most underserved. And I believe they did that through free and reduced lunches and working with guidance counselors as well to help identify students that would benefit the most from that type of program. And then once they identified that cohort of students, they followed them along through the entire year and tracked who was attending which of the functions, and they made adjustments along the way if they had any concerns about student participation kind of trailing off maybe in one area, how to bring them back. So just through a focused cohort of students and then following each of those individual students along through the program and making modifications as necessary to keep them engaged. That was an important aspect of the program. And then just the surveying. I know it's anecdotal. It was anecdotal in a large part, but even through that anecdotal data, they were able to make important adjustments along the way and track how people perceived the impact of the program on their lives. I hope that helped answer that a little bit. All right, good question. Peggy, did you raise your hand?
Yes, I did. Thanks, Stacy.
Yeah.
I just had a couple of questions. Just so that everybody knows, I'm the executive director here at the Educational Center for the Visually Impaired, and we might not have large numbers as far as the grants concerned. Most of our time is spent in hours in the training and development of new skills for people who are visually impaired. And so I was just wondering if whether or not that would eliminate us from maybe applying for the grant. And then also, what kind of age numbers? Do you limit it to a certain age? Because we serve mainly seniors who might not even know that they're visually impaired. They know they can't read the newspaper anymore or read their medicine bottles, but they don't consider themselves visually impaired. And so we're just trying to reach more people who can't see as well as others. So I just wondered if we needed large numbers and what kind of age we're looking at.
Yeah, Peggy, excellent question. There aren't restrictions on either of those criteria that you mentioned, but Sammy, can I call on you to maybe kind of reflect on what Peggy just asked?
Yeah. Peggy, again, I think as Stacy said, there is really no limit either in the age group of the people who we hope to help and serve. Secondly, there would be really no limit on the size of the grant that you're asking for. We have in the past not made a practice, but it has been about making impactful grants. So we would, of course, want to be able to help the organization as much as we can. At the same time, there have been grants, multiple grants that have been made in the span of a single year, in the span of a single cycle. Last year, we did help 3 organizations, and I think the total amount was broken up amongst them. The smallest grant was of the amount of $5,000. And so that was shared 5,000 between, well, 5,000 each between 2 organizations, and the balance was given to the 3rd applicant. So no, I think you should absolutely apply, and we would want to be able to help in whatever way one can. Again, coming back to the use of those funds and what is it going to help serve your program deliver better. I think that again is a key here. And the metrics of it, I think, derive themselves from the objectives that you set for that purpose. When those objectives of the program are clearly defined, you would yourself be able to set metrics for the measurement of the success of those objectives. So I think a clear identification of how that money is to be used really does help. And of course, the impact that it makes is again one big factor. So
I guess that's what I heard you say. It's the impact that maybe drives. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Sammy. All right, anyone else? I'm going to give everybody the opportunity to ask your questions. It's especially when we're not able to get together in person. I kind of savor every moment when we're able to at least see faces or names of folks. All right, Marcia's saying that Patrick has a question in the chat field. Let's see here. All right, so Patrick is at Catholic Charities. They get multiple calls per day needing rental and utility assistance. Let's see here. And then Patrick, are you able to unmute yourself? I see Karen.
Yes,
had
I just
asked.
hit the unmute button.
Oh, great. All right.
So yeah, that's just something initiatives where someone, they'll call them, they'll say they need, they're having trouble with their rental or utilities. I'm just asking for any sort of assistance that that we can provide. So we did have assistance for both rental and utilities last calendar year, but that was exhausted very quickly. There is still some utility assistance right now, but that the way the grant is for that, it's just restricted just to senior citizens.
I'm going to kind of lean on the grant committee members here. This is, you're asking Patrick if a request for support for rental and utility assistance might be considered by the Women's Fund. Is that the question?
Yeah, and I can talk with my my crisis workers also just to see what other ideas they have for
Sure.
But yeah, that's where, as I see, is one of the greatest needs in the community is for rental and utility assistance.
Yeah, I don't know if any of the other grant committee members would want to chime in here. But Patrick, I think it would be helpful to be able to set up a fund from your end that could then be presented to organizations such as ours to possibly solicit help. But I think there would be need for the setting up of a fund, which then has clear follow-through processes.
Okay, and I know they do have, and I can't off the top of my head, but I know we do have multiple funds through our crisis office that are currently set up, and I'll talk with our crisis case workers to see which ones they would best be able to be used.
Okay, so yeah, I think when it takes shape and form, I mean, we would be happy to look at it, definitely.
Okay, Thank you.
All right. Okay, I'm going to attempt to share my screen one more time just to make sure that folks have my contact information here. Shoot, hold on. You would think this would be completely smooth now that we've been doing it for so long. Give me 1 second, folks. My apologies here. Okay. It's not really allowing me to do it, so I'm just going to verbally do it here. All right. Please feel free to contact the Community Foundation if you have any questions as you're reviewing the letter of inquiry. My email address is reed, R-E-E-D, @cfll.org. The Community Foundation's phone number is 217-789-4431. I also see here that Catherine, did you have your hand up? Could you go ahead and unmute and share your question if you have one?
Okay. I'll take the hand off. I'm here kind of a little bit, I don't want to call rid of that. I don't want to call it as premature, but in kind of a different vein than maybe some of the rest of you. I'm here representing an organization that may in the future be able to want to partner with one of your groups. I don't want to say much about it, but I do want to say this. We have some physical space in a building that's in a location in Springfield that is completely underutilized. It's empty, but yet we are heating and cooling. It's got classrooms. It's a wonderful space. We are a not-for-profit, but we are not a 501c3. We would like to do a project that we could partner with a 501c3. They, or maybe we could both work together getting grants to help make something happen. But we are located in a place where there's a demographic that would look on the surface like there may not be a lot of human kind of needs, but we think that there are some needs for women and for children. And part of what we might want to be funded to do is to do some exploration in that community and in the whole city of Springfield and say, who can we help? Who can we provide space to? So we're in an area that's so we're so much before the programming stage. I don't know whether the grant could fit for us, but we think there's probably a grant out there that could fit to do that kind of like I say, exploration. We feel like we've got a resource, a wonderful resource that is going to waste in a location that's just a wonderful part of Springfield, you might call it, that, brings with it some unique resources. So I thought I'd bring this to you guys since you represent lots of other organizations as just a kind of something you can put in the back of your mind and say, wow, if only we had a building. That's kind of where we are with our thing.
Thank you for sharing that. Sammy, I think, are you trying to speak? I think you're on mute.
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful to know, Catherine, and thanks for bringing that up. I know that we know that Compass for Kids has been expanding their summer program. They have worked with District 186 this past year, and they were currently working out of schools through the summer. But I think there was need for additional space. So that is something that we can probably reach out to the executive director there and let her know about it. We'd be happy to connect you with them. But again, to understand what is your organization about? And
it is a faith-based organization. Okay. And that, as I said, it's a not-for-profit, but as yet it has not formed a segment of it that could be a 501c3. It's not that we would never do that. It just hasn't happened yet. I put my contact information on there. I'm going to add my email address also.
Great.
So
great, thank you. So you're operating out of that space, but you just had additional space that is sitting free and unused at this point?
Yes. More than half of it is unused, but it's space that in the past has been used for all kinds of different stuff. It's dwindled to nothingness, and that's kind of a waste of resources.
Right. No, sure, we understand. Get it. Yeah. We'll be happy to take down the information and propose it to anybody who might be in need. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Catherine, from an application standpoint, if it did over the course of the next 4 weeks, if this does turn into something where you think it might be potentially beneficial to apply for a grant, finding perhaps a fiscal agent who meets the criteria and working through them for the application. Women for Women, it's rare, but Women for Women has funded things in the past that aren't kind of traditional direct service programming. I'm thinking back to a conference they funded years ago through UIS. I think it was on education initiatives for women and girls. So I think they'd be open to, hearing your idea. I don't think that would be too off the mark.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try to follow up with the letter of inquiry stuff for sure. Mhm.
Okay, wonderful. All right, I see a few more in the chat field here, but I don't think I'm missing. Marcia, while we were talking, did you see any other hands go up or, okay,
And I think we're caught up on what I've seen.
okay. All right, well, I just wanted to thank everyone again for attending today. And if there are no more questions, again, please feel free to reach out to the Community Foundation. Again, our website is cfll.org. You'll find my contact information there. You'll also go to that website to access the letter of inquiry. Also follow the Community Foundation on Facebook. We always post when grants go live. So that's a really good way to be notified right away when opportunities come up. And I just wanted to thank you again for participating. It was great to see you, great to hear from you. And thanks again to the Women for Women members who could be here today.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.